Book of Heaven, Volume 8, Part 2. October 29th, 1907. True Love and Sacrifice. As I was in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and I saw baby Jesus, who, placing himself on my bed, beat my whole body with his hands, giving me also some kicks. After he beat me well and trampled me, he disappeared. As I returned into myself, I could not understand the reason for this beating, but I was content, remembering that I had drawn closer to Jesus to be beaten more. Then, while feeling all beaten up, I was surprised again by blessed Jesus, who, removing the crown of thorns from his head himself, drove it into mine, but with such force that all the thorns were driven into me. Then, placing himself in my interior, almost in the act of moving forward, he told me, "My daughter, how are you doing? Let us go higher. Let us go higher in chastising the world." I felt frightened on hearing that I was uniting my will to his in going higher with chastisements. And he added, "That which I tell you, you must not forget. Remember that some time ago I showed you the present chastisements, as well as those that I was to send? And you, presenting yourself before my justice, pleaded so much for mankind, offering yourself to suffer anything, that it was conceded to you, as alms, that instead of doing 10, out of regard for you it would do 5. This is why this morning I beat you, to be able to give you your intent, that though having to do 10, I do 5. Then he added, "My daughter, love is that which ennobles the soul, and gives her possession of all my riches, because true love tolerates no division of any kind, even though one may be inferior to the other. What is mine is yours. This is the language of two beings who really love each other, because true love is transformation. So the beauty of one removes the ugliness of the other, and renders him beautiful. If one is poor, I make him rich. If ignorant, I make him learned. If wretched, I make him noble. One is the heartbeat, one the breath, one the will in two beings that love each other. And if any other heartbeat or breath wanted to enter into them, they feel suffocated, breathless, and torn, and they become ill. So true love is health and sanctity, and one breathes a balsamic and fragrant air, that is the breath and the life of love itself. But it is in sacrifice that this love is more ennobled, more strengthened, more confirmed and expanded. So love is the flame, sacrifice is the wood. Where there is more wood, the flames are higher, and the fire is always greater. What is sacrifice? It is to empty oneself out in the love and in the being of the beloved. And the more one sacrifices himself, the more he is consumed in the being of the beloved, losing his own, and acquiring all the features and the nobility of the divine being. See, it is so also in the natural world, though very imperfect. Who acquires a name, nobility, heroism? A soldier who sacrifices himself, who exposes himself in battle, who lays down his life for love of the king? Or another, who stands arms akimbo? Certainly the first one. The same for a servant. Who can hope to sit at the table of his master? The faithful servant who sacrifices himself, who lays down his life, who has greater care for the interests of his master than for his own, out of love for his master? Or the servant who, though he fulfills his duty, when he can shun the sacrifice, shuns it? Certainly the first one. The same for a son with his father, for a friend with his friend, and so with all the rest. Therefore love ennobles and unites, and forms one single thing. Sacrifice is the wood to make the fire of love grow. Obedience, then, orders everything. November 3rd, 1907. The soul and the divine will must concur in everything. This morning, as I was in my usual state, I felt him move in my interior, repeating, "Let us go higher." On hearing this, I shrugged my shoulders, saying, "Lord, why do you say, 'Let us go higher'? Say rather, 'I shall go higher with chastisements.' I am afraid to put my will into it." And he, "My daughter, my will and yours are one, and if I say, 'Let us go higher with chastisements,' do I not say the same in the good I do to creatures that surpasses, oh, by far, the chastisements? Also, are you not united with me in the many other chastisements that I do not send? So the one who is united in good, should he not be united in mortifications? Between me and you there must be no division. You are nothing but tiny little grass that God delighted in endowing with a marvelous virtue. And just as one who does not know the virtue that this tiny little grass contains, tramples it, and does not even look at it, in the same way, one who does not know the gift that I have placed in you, and the virtue that my little grass contains, not only tramples you, but does not understand how I delight in giving value to the littlest things." After this he seemed to lean his head upon mine, and I said, "Oh, please let me feel your thorns." And he, "Do you want me to beat you?" And I, "Yes." At that moment, a rod, armed with balls of fire, found itself in the hand of Jesus. And I, seeing the fire, "Lord, I am afraid of fire. Beat me only with the rod." And he, "You don't want to be beaten, and I am going away." And he disappeared without giving me the time to pray him to beat me as he pleased. Oh, how concerned and afflicted I remained. But he who is so good shall forgive me. November 18th, 1907. By living her nothingness, the soul is filled with God. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little, and as soon as I saw him, I said, "My sweet life, how bad I have become. I feel I am reduced to nothing. I no longer feel anything in me. Everything is empty. I just feel an enchantment in my interior. And in this enchantment, I wait for you, so that you may fill me." But in vain do I wait for this filling. On the contrary, I feel I always return to nothing. And Jesus: Ah, my daughter, and you afflict yourself, for you feel reduced to nothing? Rather, I say to you, the more the creature is reduced to nothing, the more she is filled with the all. And if she left even one shadow of herself, that shadow would prevent me from giving all of myself completely to the soul. Your constant returning to nothing means that you are dissolving your human being to reacquire the divine. November 21st, 1907. Love and union between Creator and creature. Continuing in my usual state, I was uniting myself with our Lord, making His thought, His heartbeat, His breath, and all of His movements one with mine, and then adding the intention of going to all creatures, to give all this to all. And since I was united to Jesus in the Garden of Olives, I also gave to all and to each one, and also to the purging souls, the drops of His blood, His prayers, His pains, and all the good He did, so that all the breaths, movements, and heartbeats of creatures might be repaired, purified, divinized. And I gave the font of all goods, that are His pains, as remedies for all. While I was doing this, blessed Jesus told me in my interior, My daughter, with these intentions of yours, you wound me continuously. And since you do them often, one arrow does not wait for another, and I am always wounded again. And I said, How can it be possible that you are wounded, when you hide and make me suffer so much in waiting for your coming? Are these the wounds? Is this the love you have for me? And he, Rather, I have said nothing of all I should tell you. The soul herself, while she is a pilgrim, cannot comprehend all the good and love that passes between creatures and Creator, that her operating, speaking, suffering is all in my life, and that only by acting in this way can she do good to all. I shall just tell you that each thought, heartbeat, and movement of yours, each member of yours, any suffering bone of yours, are as many lights that come out from you. And as they touch me, I melt them for the good of all, while I send back to you, tripled, as many other lights of grace. And in heaven I shall give them to you of glory. It is enough to tell you that there is such union, such closeness, that the Creator is the organ, and the creature is the sound. The Creator the sun, the creature the rays. The Creator the flower, the creature the fragrance. Can one perhaps be without the other? Certainly not. Do you think that I do not take into account all your interior work and your pains? How can I forget them if they come from my very self and are one thing with me? I also add that every time my passion is remembered, since it is a treasure exposed for the good of all, it is as if one put it on a counter to multiply it and distribute it for the good of all. November 23rd, 1907. If the soul suffers distractions at communion, it is a sign that she has not given herself completely to God. Having heard from someone that she would get easily distracted at communion, I was saying in my interior, "How is it possible to get distracted while being with you? Does one perhaps not remain all absorbed in you?" Now finding myself in my usual state, I was doing my usual interior things, and it was as if I could see some distractions wanting to enter into me. And blessed Jesus put his hands in front of them and did not let them in. Then he told me, "My daughter, if the soul suffers distractions and disturbances, it is a sign that she has not given herself completely to me. In fact, when the soul has given herself completely to me, since she is my own thing, I know how to keep my gift in good custody. But when they do not give me everything, because of their free will, I cannot keep that special custody, and they are forced to suffer importuning things that disturb my union with them. On the other hand, when the soul is all mine, she makes no effort to remain calm. The commitment is all mine, to let nothing enter that may disturb our union." December 1907. In all of her acts, the soul must have the intention of encountering Jesus. As I was in my usual state, I found myself with the thought of when blessed Jesus met his Blessed Mother on the way to Calvary. And while I was compassionating both one and the other, sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, my mother went out on the day of my passion only to be able to meet and relieve her son. In the same way, for a true loving soul, her intention in all of her actions is only that of encountering her beloved and of relieving him from the weight of his cross. And since human life is a continuous attitude of actions, both external and internal, the soul does nothing but meet her beloved continuously. And shall she just meet him? No, no, she shall greet him. She shall embrace him. She kisses him. She consoles him. She loves him, be it even with a little word said in passing. And he shall be satisfied and content. And since the action always contains a sacrifice, if the action is done to encounter the sacrifice contained in it, it shall serve to relieve me from the weight of my cross. What shall be the happiness of this soul who in her actions is always in contact with me? How my love shall grow evermore at each additional encounter she has by means of her acting with me. But how few are those who make use of it to find the shortest way in their actions to come to me, cling to me, and relieve me from the many afflictions that creatures give me. January 23rd, 1908. Jesus never goes out to the soul uselessly. Temporizing gives time and space to the enemies to wage battle. As initial M came, he told me that in these comings of our Lord, I did not deserve anything, and that I only deserved something when I practiced the virtues. And he also told me to pray for certain needs of his. Then during the course of the day, I was concerned about what I had heard, and in order to snap out of it, I said to myself, "My adorable good, You know that I have never cared about merits, but only about loving you. It seems that they want to make me a servant in your house, as if I cared about gains. No, I don't want to be servant, but daughter. Even more, you my beloved and I yours. But in spite of this, that thought would come back very often. Now, as I found myself in my usual state, my blessed Jesus came and told me, "My daughter, initial M, did not tell you the truth, because when I go to a soul, I never go uselessly, but I always bring her some usefulness. Now I speak to her about virtues. Now I correct her. Now I communicate my beauty to her, in such a way that all other things appear ugly to her, and many other things. And even if I did not say anything to her, it is certain that love develops more in the soul, and the more she loves me, the more I come to love her in return. And the merits of love are so great, noble, and divine, that compared to other merits, those could be called lead, and these pure gold. Besides, he himself came, and indeed he did not come like a statue. He tried to say some words, and to do some good to you, though as a creature. And then I, who am the Creator, would do useless things?" At that moment I remembered the needs that initial M had told me, and I prayed our Lord to answer him. In the meantime I seemed to see him with a silver-colored garment. A black veil descended from his head, covering part of his eyes, and this veil seemed to communicate itself to another person who was behind him. I could not understand anything of this, and blessed Jesus told me, "The silver-colored garment that you see on him is his purity in operating, and the black veil is the human that he mixes with it. This human that he mixes is like a veil, that covering the light of truth that shines in his mind, sometimes makes him act with fear, or to content someone else, and not according to the truth that my grace makes shine in his mind. And I, Lord, grant him what he told me, for it is something that regards your glory very much." And he, "For an irresolute soul, temporizing gives time and space to the enemies to wage battle, while by not giving them time, and by showing oneself resolute and unshakable, the doors are closed to the enemies, and one has the good of not even exposing oneself to the brawl. So if he wants to reach his goal quickly, these are the means, and I shall be with him, and he shall be victorious. And then the very ones who are most opposed to him shall be the most supportive, and shall admire him the most, seeing that he has undone their human views." February 6, 1908. Signs to know whether the soul is in grace. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little and told me, "My daughter, the sign to know whether a soul is in my grace is that as my grace communicates itself to her, the soul is ready to execute what grace wants, in such a way that the grace that was already in her interior and that which communicates itself afterwards hold hands, and united with the will of the soul, place themselves in the attitude of operating. If then she is not ready, there is much to doubt about. Grace is symbolized by electric current that turns on only those things where preparations have been made to receive the electric current. But where these preparations are not present, or some wires are broken or consumed, even though there is current, the light cannot communicate itself. And he disappeared. February 7th, 1908. Life is a weight that shall turn into a treasure. Continuing in my usual state, I was thinking about the enormous weight that blessed Jesus felt in carrying the cross, and I said to myself, Lord, life too is a weight. But what a weight! Especially because you, my highest good, are far away. At that moment he came and told me, My daughter, it is true that life is a weight, but when this weight is carried with me, and one finds out that at the end of his life he can unload this weight within me, he shall find this weight changed into a treasure, in which he shall find gems, precious stones, diamonds, and all riches, such as to make him happy for eternity. February 9th, 1908. The way the soul must be with Jesus. Necessity of love for Jesus. Having received communion, I was saying, Lord, keep me always clasped to you, for I am too little. And if you do not keep me clasped, because I am little, I may get lost. And he, I want to teach you the way you must be with me. First, you must enter into me, transform yourself in me, and take what you find in me. Second, once you have filled yourself completely with me, go out and operate together with me, as if you and I were one single thing, in such a way that if I move, you move as well. If I think, you think of the same thing of which I am thinking. In sum, whatever I do, you do as well. Third, with these acts that we have done together, move away from me for one instant and go into the midst of creatures, giving to all and to each one everything we have done together. That is, giving my divine life to each one, and then quickly returning into me to give me in the name of all the glory that they should give me, praying, excusing them, repairing, loving. Ah, yes, love me for all. Satiate me with love. There are no passions in me, but if there could be any passion, it would be only this and this alone, love. But love in me is more than passion. It is my life. And if passions can be destroyed, life cannot. See the necessity of being loved in which I find myself. Therefore love me. Love me. February 12th, 1908. In one day, a courageous soul does more than a timid one does in 1 year. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little and told me, My daughter, timidity represses grace and hampers the soul. A timid soul shall never be good at operating great things, either for God or for her neighbor or for herself. When a soul is timid, it is as if she had her legs tied. Unable to walk freely, she always has her eyes fixed on herself and on the effort she makes in order to walk. Timidity makes her keep her eyes low, never high. In operating, she draws her strength not from God, but from herself, and therefore, instead of becoming stronger, she becomes weaker. If grace sows, it happens to it as to a poor farmer, who, having sown and worked his little field, harvests little or nothing. On the other hand, In one day a courageous soul does more than a timid one does in 1 year. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 8, Part 2. Fiat.